That's why I handed it. I would have messed up the whole thing. Can someone give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay? I want to make sure I'm not too far away from the microphone.
We can hear you fantastically well.
Awesome, thanks, Jim. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. It is now 11:03, so welcome to the Community Correction Partnership Policy and Budget Subcommittee meeting. It is April 19th, so we'll go ahead and jump into the agenda. The first item on our agenda is welcome introductions and announcements. So we'll start with committee members. My name is Nicole Green. I am the chair of the Policy and Budget Subcommittee.
Good morning, Justin Van Zerber, Vice Chair, West County.
And I'm East County, sorry about that. And for any staff on Zoom, Kimmy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Kimmy Aseo from the Office of Reentry and Justice.
Thanks, Kimmy. Then we have Ozzy. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, Ozzy Carter, East County.
Thank you. Welcome, Jill.
Good morning, Jill Ray with the Office of Supervisor Candace Anderson.
Good morning, and we have Patrice back in the room. Introductions.
Hi, everyone. Patrice Guillory here from ORJ.
And I'll open it up to our guests. We have Jamie.
Hi, everyone. Jamie Schechter, Homeless Services Chief with Contra Costa Health Housing, Homeless Services.
Thank you, and welcome to the meeting today. So we're moving to announcements. I don't have any announcements. Any announcements, staff?
CCP.
Oh, yes, thank you. That's a great announcement. CCP meeting has been rescheduled. It will not be held on April 29th. It has been rescheduled for May 13th at 10:30 a.m. here at 50 Douglas. You're also welcome to join via Zoom.
Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is public comment on any items under the jurisdiction of the Community Advisory Board and not on the agenda. Seeing no comments in the room.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
And this is to Patrice, and I know it's public comment, so probably can't go back and forth, but maybe in somewhere in this meeting today, there could be a quick rundown on the process going forward with this budget one-time ask for the excess funds, on where it goes next and the process to get to the Board of Supervisors. That question has come up, and I'm a little unclear, 100% unclear as to the exact process.
Yeah, my understanding is that the recommendations would be heard by the CCP at the next CCP meeting. And then following that, either it would be scheduled for discussion with PPC or somehow be factored into the rest of the budget discussions that are held at the Board of Supervisors level. I've not received any further discussion or new updates, especially with the new changes in the scheduling for CCP as well as PPC. PPC's meeting was also canceled. So, but I will look into it because I know there were a couple other questions around for any of the allocations that have been identified to be administered through the county agencies, if the expectation is that that will be spent down in the next fiscal year, or as one time, or is there some ability for some of these resources to be stretched out over time. So all to say, I will follow up to get a little bit more clarity on the next steps, as well as what are any of the spending guidelines or restrictions that we all should be aware of. My hope is that that would also be shared at the CCP. I will do that.
And are we expected to present at that 5:13 meeting?
Yes.
Thank you, Jill. Great question. Any other questions or public comment? Seeing none in the room or on Zoom, we'll go ahead and move forward. So the next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the March 22nd Capital Policy Subcommittee meeting. I'm for a motion to approve, and that is on attachment 1, pages 4 through 6.
Motion to approve.
And I second that motion. I'm so used to going, Garyana.
Motion passes.
Can we have a vote, Kimmy? Ask Kimmy or do I ask you?
No, you guys, yes.
Hi, Kimmy.
Oh,
my-
sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry, I think I
Okay,
was
Kimmy, I'm like,
muted. All right, so we have a motion from Justin, a second from Nicole. Go ahead, Nicole. I'm assuming you're a yes.
Or Kimmy, you can just add all in favor. and-
Okay, all in favor.
Hi,
Aye.
Perfect. So motion carries.
thank you. All right, to the fun stuff. So our next item on the agenda is to discuss and finalize our AB 109 excess fund recommendations, which is on attachment 2, pages 7 through 13. We're going to discuss the money allocations for the AB 109 excess funds. Are we going to share this first sheet on here?
Yeah, we will. But before we do that, oh wait, before you get there, Kimmy, if you can go back to go to the attachment, page 7. So at the last, full body meeting, there were conversations about making sure that there was some additions added. So I wanted to make sure that that was highlighted. If you can scroll to the next, I believe it was under the pre and post. Pre and post release priority areas at it, right there.
GI was updated.
Oh, GR was supposed to be up there.
It's, I think the old one's in the packet, not before. But the last thing that was sent to the subcommittee was changed. I just think this was the old. This is the old one.
Oh, no, okay. All right, well then, just to clarify, here for guaranteed income at the last CAB meeting, the CAB members approved increasing the GI amount from 1 million to 2 million. If you can scroll down a little. And then, there were some updates. And then to also include a line for, this is in regards to, some expansion of services based on the in-custody survey findings. One of which included an expansion of in-custody and post-release services for women. And these are items that have no funding allocation has been made to them yet, and so we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. If you could scroll down a little further. I think all of these were the same, they all remained. Scroll down more. So that means it did change the unallocated amount with the additional 1 million allocated to for GI. And these items here, the additional recommendations for really CBO and departmental training and project support at the last CAP meeting. Members requested that some dollar amounts be allocated to these areas. Even though these recommendations have more to do with some system improvements than direct services, folks wanted to be sure that there was some consideration of any costs that would be incurred to ensure that these project supports and trainings were made available. So just wanted to give that context and breakdown. And so what we'll do now, one last thing. So CAP then approved the subcommittee or authorize the subcommittee to make funding adjustments. So what we'll do now is we have a spreadsheet that has all of this same information, but just more condensed, so that way we can move dollars around in real time. So Kimmy, if you can go to that spreadsheet. So all of these are the original allocated amounts that are in the outline that you also have in your packet. We do have formulas built in here so that way we can, you all can make recommendations of how you want to disperse the remaining balance that's listed. You can scroll down, Kimmy. So far, what has been allocated based on the conversation from the last CAB meeting is just over 11 million. You have a remaining balance of just over 3.8. I need better context. And so that would need to be, thank you, redistributed or allocated out across some of these other areas that have no funding amounts attached to them. So I'll leave it to you guys. Happy to answer any questions you might have, or
Can we scroll back up to the, there you go, the okay, that amount is there, countywide beneficial.
so each area has its own total line, so you can see what is being spent or what you're recommending in terms of allocations for each priority area, as well as the department and CBO requests. And then what has not been no funding allocated at the moment or for the training and project supports for departments and CBOs.
So I guess the first thing I would ask the committee, is there any areas that we, sorry, the committee, is there any areas that we may see that there's an increase needed in reference to like housing area? Was there any feedback in what was put together that you may think that before we allocate the rest of it, that any areas that need to be increased?
I mean, I think from my perspective, it might be helpful to allocate where we don't have funding there.
Okay.
So like going down to the training and project support section.
Do we want to do priority 4 first? The after hours,
Sure,
kind of
yeah.
that part
Right.
first?
So my understanding from this was that the 450 was gonna cover the first
Right.
3 items, and then we added the women's expansion. But I have no idea how much this stuff costs.
So that's what I was going to ask, based on current program structure, is there an example of how much they're, so when we say after hours program expansion, that was around mentorship, that was around the transportation, the case management, is there like a figure with the current, how much it did?
Yeah, it will be dependent upon each service.
Okay,
So right now, the Reacher Success Center is the only entity or the only service provider of all the community programs that are offering some after-hour
right.
programming. Again, but even that has its own limits because it's up to 8 p.m. and then some Saturday hours. So my understanding is that with that line, that you all were looking at expanding program hours across all the programs. So a couple of things to think about is, one, if all of the programs that are being offered, for example, family reunification, is the expectation that they are to be an evening program or weekend program? Does it fit within the program structure and model? That's one thing to talk about. So that's one thing. And then if it's to be connected to, say, gym releases, then it would be best to identify which existing programs were at that time of immediate release are to be available then for that after hour weekend hour.
So I think that's to simplify where we, and correct me if I'm off in there, was focusing on those main particular health and services around the transportation currently RRC health records that's existing, because the recommendation that was brought to us is there isn't enough services in the East. Well, we do have programs in the East, it just don't have the capacity to do it what they have now. So how do we expand, like for example, health right in the city to be able to have some additional or if the Rubicon services do available there, for someone to, and it may not be the kind of education, it's just to be able to out at that time have, kind of like what RSC have, they have after hours when they get out and on the weekend, how much would it cost for that? This is a one-time funding, option, so I think later on we can look more deeper into those other things, but it was more tied into what is being said that's missing from the surveys. There isn't transportation around the clock, and there isn't services provided to individuals based on the time of release from incarceration. So to ensure that there's someone to be able to pick them up, ensure that there's someone, for example, like RSC, that give them a hot meal, whatever that case may be, well, upon any of the hours throughout the day that they're released.
Well, then what I'm hearing from you is it's not all services.
Correct. I'm sorry.
It would be that like segmented intervention right at release.
Correct.
So then that would include the type of services then that would be included in that would be transportation, the peer mentor. I'm assuming potentially the housing placement.
I mean, yeah, it would tie into the bridge then.
And then the reentry service hubs. if
Correct.
They have hours, if they can make themselves available, for around the hours of release and weekends.
Right.
But I don't, is it the hubs or is it just like a case manager? Because it's like, isn't it?
So what was brought to us was that there is based on the surveys and feedback from our providers, that there is a lot of services from the public with transportations, and one of the key things was East County with, I guess, that case management, which ties to a hub, but there is, which is help right.
Well, like if I get released at 2 a.m., I'm not gonna wanna go to a hub and start working on my resume. I'm
Well,
gonna eat and go to sleep.
Well, that's what a hub is. Well, it depends. So a hub is like RC. You go there to get a hot meal and clothing. And then at that point, you can even go to like a shelter. It's there to provide that service to you. So excuse me. That's normally what it is. It's not walking right in and sit down and get your resume and then that whole process. They like RSC, they usually start you off with a hot meal,
Yeah.
make sure that you have food, figure out where you want to go. They may do the intake paperwork and then get you on your way if it's to a shelter or
Yeah.
approved location. So they're missing that piece from when they get released. Or even if it's going into a shelter, hopefully with that court representative, that'll be that direct connection to the shelter. Currently, right now, the court team is limited, but they come and pick them up from the jail and they take them to the shelter.
Yeah, the only thing with the hub model works for reentry success because it's a physical location that you can take them to. Whereas for the reentry network in Central and East, the way that that's designed, it's very field-based.
Right.
So you wouldn't necessarily take them directly to like the administrative office
Right.
of Right 360 because there's really or it's minimal programming
Right.
happening there. So I think it would probably need to talk through or figure out what would be that sort of offshoot from the hub of that kind of immediate placement and support, the food, the housing, the engagement, the rapport building, all of that. In order to kind of have something similar to what the Success Center is offering in terms of evening hours. And then from there, connect them to whoever would be their case manager or reentry coordinator that's out there at East and Central. So let's say the person is released on a Sunday, 5 a.m. on a Sunday, they get picked up and placed in housing somewhere out Central or East. And then that following Monday morning, but in the meantime, there's maybe some mentorship or connection that's being provided, and then by Monday morning, the health right team connects with them to start doing now their individual service plan. We'll check it in on them, obviously, but then if they're ready to then start developing their sort of reentry plan, they can start working.
So would it be changing maybe the title of the after hours program expansion / I won't say hub, just name it something else.
But so, we take a step back, so the line 17, the countywide transportation,
Mhm.
we're already doing that, and that's already funded, right? The gap is these additional hours where resources aren't built, correct? So then, I think we,
Well, yes and no, it's being done, yes.
go ahead.
It needs to be, it's my standard, right? It's there, but it needs to be expanded a little bit more. So RC is the main place that provides the transportation and yes, and
So they do, so there are gonna be resources allocated to the model as it is. And there are gonna be resources allocated to expanding it to offer additional hours outside of 9 to 5 or 9 to 8, whatever. Is that what I'm hearing?
correct.
Okay. So then, are we able to look at what they're funded at right now for their,
For their transportation.
yeah? 'Cause that's what we're honing in on, right?
Correct.
Okay, right.
Oh, actually, that's what that number was based off of. I'm sorry. So this 450, what that was based off of was, that for both hubs that are actually, both hubs are currently providing transportation. More so through through rideshare. RSC did originally through a previous, local innovation fund, grant, if you will, did have a, transportation pilot project that the full scope of it was to be both rideshare as well as, a staff person or two and actual leasing of a vehicle to do some of this pickup, drop off or what have you. COVID then happened, and so we were not able to really fulfill the actual physical pickup that they wanted to have and just kind of relied more so on the, on the ride share. Similarly, Health Right 360 has in the past leased a vehicle. I've had challenges with it being gas siphoned, all kind of a host of things. So, and that was through the utilization, they received funds through, that's while I was still there for, Prop 47 grant for the COCO Plus. And then based on some of those, between those two experiences and then what, they're spending currently on ride shares is how we got to that 450,000, number. And I want to say that even in the outlined, we have it as the administering agency for this would be the hubs as well as OMJ to provide the oversight on that.
So how much is it, for like for that pilot RSC ad where they actually had a staff member and a pickup?
I want to say it was somewhere in the ballpark of 275,000, and it was originally to be served countywide.
Because currently right now we have is ride share, which is great for the have one limitation. So when we say expand, we expand it too. And I think it would be great, because to see that they had a possible pilot going there of, these hubs are having that opportunity to have a staff member to be able to do that. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if it's the right thing to do. But when we say expand, we'll expand it too. Are we going to say we want to give more money for ride share, which is not, it's working, but it's not? Or do we want to provide a different option? And what would that cost look like? So does that 450, and I'm sorry if I said it already, includes the option for like a staff member and a vehicle if for
For both hubs, yeah.
okay.
And that's for 1 year.
Yeah, actually, based on RC's previous numbers, that was for 18-month process. So it would be a little, yeah, it'd be a little bit longer.
I think we layer on a little bit money, a little more money to expand after all. I think we fund that. I think we should try to push them to do that over like a 3-year period of time. With that amount of funding, and if they blow through it in the first 18 months, that's an argument to the county to be like, we need to reinvest in this type of model. We're expanding rapidly. That's where my head is at.
So Kimmy, would you mind, next to in line C, column C, next to 450, you could type in a note, 3-year.
Are you good with that?
No problem with that.
Yeah. And then maybe it's like 100K for the after hours or so. I have no idea.
Me either, and I want to make sure for that transportation part that it's to include, and correct me if I'm saying it wrong, but I really want to see that addition added back to it with the possibility of staffing.
That's what the peer support
Okay.
part is.
Okay, I just want to make sure that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That the larger.
Oh, okay.
And just spell it out.
Okay. I have no idea what the amounts are either for the app, so I guess we, after our program.
Pilot, let's go 100K.
For, what is this now?
The after hours expansion.
But,
Sorry.
but the after hour expansion would be for which, okay, we do need some notation on this, for which services specifically.
Back to what we said earlier.
The transportation to housing and food.
The transportation, housing, case management, like you said, an extension of the, I wish I would have actually said something. Where, that like, kind of like a hub extension, an extension of what kind of like what RRC has in the east.
The targeting, so would it be targeting east?
It will be providing additional services for west and an expansion in east. Because west already has it, but it needs. They need to expand their hours to be able to help those in east and then, west and east doesn't really have.
Feels like we need to be more specific. Is that what?
So for west, it's expanding Western Place because RSC is there in west and they provide, like you said, certain hours from Saturday and Sunday and transportation. So expanding, providing them with, not them, but funding in that area to expanding the hours of operation that they're open, being able to pick up individuals and give additional support. And then east, like we said, RSC, Help Right 360 is not structured like RSC. So expanding that RSC model into each to be able to have those after hours, if someone gets released and then like they're figuring out who will be able to do that.
So I would recommend that if you do, if you're doing this specifically to target east, let's start there. You may want to, instead of having a line for 100,000 after hour program, and instead just ensure that the bridge housing line includes after hour placement and coordination.
Is that
I was thinking that I was
line
actually
21?
with the core team assessment.
So with core team, this was added to account for any, the 300,000 at the top on, for housing for creating the core team. H3 presented that, what their annual costs are. Now, they do not necessarily have a team that works around the clock, like 24 hours. But should it be shift-based or anything like that, and it would require more than 300,000, because I believe it is based on a 40-hour work week, that allocation. So obviously that would be more than the 40 hours a day. So it would be more than that. So then that additional resource or line there for 150,000 could go toward ensuring that core is available for the pickups at the jails
Right.
after hours, and then take to, you know,
Whatever the
place,
destination.
whatever, or
Yeah.
if it's if the destination is the bridge house.
Okay. Can we type in what you just said so we don't forget what you just said? Like, see?
Can you repeat it one more time?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay,
Same
so,
assessment service
So we
coordination.
can get rid of line 18.
So I would just say to ensure that, yeah, I think.
what that
if-
amount
if we-
with the 24?
If you, well, let's see, Jane, you're on. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Question about bridge housing.
Mhm.
The recommended amounts that you guys had for that, it doesn't necessarily take into account staffing that's there around the clock, right? It's just kind of a static, standard housing program. Unless you have a lived-in like housing manager or something like that.
Right. So what a bridge housing model would have on-site staff 24/7, kind of like a shelter attendant, or folks who kind of walk the units and are there for any after-hours emergencies. But it wouldn't necessarily be our intake staff, our case management staff, who would then receive someone after hours and do a full intake and all of that. Not that anybody wants to do that at 2 a.m., but just noting there's a difference in service provision for staff who would be on site 24/7 versus case management. And then what I would say is, if this is an appropriate time for a little bit of public comment, a lot of my thoughts would be dependent on what Patrice has noted earlier, is if this needs to be spent in 1 year, then that would change kind of my perspective on adding funds. But if we have more time to spend, then that could build some sustainability in a core team, for example, if we budget for 2 years versus 1.
And that was kind of where my head was at, is similar to the countywide expansion over 3 years, if we could do that for 3 years and then increase that amount by 3 years or something. So we give them 150K each year.
So let's note that. 3 year there too.
I don't know how you feel about that.
No, I'm agree with,
Because I feel like that totally fills that gap, right? So we've heard that transportation is an issue, so we're increasing
right,
funding there, and we're also heard that after hours engagement is an issue. And so we're leveraging this investment in the core team to be available during those after hours where the countywide investment CBOs are not, the countywide contracted CBOs.
okay,
That's what I'm
that
hearing.
makes sense,
And
that makes more sense.
even though it says, it's in the bucket of pre and post release, that countywide transportation peer support service doesn't have to just simply be at the time of jail releases. It
Right.
could be it
Yeah.
could be when the person actually is also actively engaged in
Right.
programming.
Right.
So they then have a reliable source of transportation
Love it.
to other appointments and things like that.
So then, Kimmy, can you update B21 to 450, please? Thank you.
That 450 as if that's the 3 year?
Yeah.
Okay.
150, or
And
however
then you
you
have
are.
to update 17? For 3 years?
That already is.
But she did say that's, my brain, I'm still counting 1 year.
You're good.
You were saying you'd like to see that spent over the course of 3 years.
Oh, of course, okay,
So then 18, we don't need.
right. So in column C where it says 3 year, can you just put that in there, spent in the course over 3 years, and then I'll forget
Which one?
where she's typing in, so I can separate the difference between that one and the one for, C21.
It's not the same. They're both the same.
Yes, but I just remember, what she can put it there too. That way I'll remember. I'll be like, we said 3 years something, so.
Right. So then we're on to,
So Kimmy, you can actually delete 18. Fine.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
Thanks. Hopefully that doesn't-
it should. All right.
Okay. So for the women's services in custody, do we have any information from any of the providers? In terms of, the amounts, budget amounts in reference to women's services?
Jan is on here. Maybe she has some information that would be helpful.
Yeah, I don't have any actual numbers from like the Gemma project. I do know that she and I were talking about getting started ASAP, hoping that she would be able to apply for some funds to continue working with the women in custody. But she doesn't want to get started unless she can somehow secure funding for down the road. She has enough for short term, but she wants to be able to continue her services inside. But she didn't give me an actual ask amount as to how much she would need to do that.
We don't have information.
Cynthia's online if you wanted to ask her.
Is she? I'm not seeing. Oh,
Oh, she is online.
oh my, y'all don't see anybody. Oh, Cynthia? Would you happen to know the budget amount for women's services that your program provides?
If you give me just 1 minute, let me pull up the budget for the full in custody and continuing care program, and I can have it for you momentarily.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I didn't see you down here. Nice to see you. And in translation services for in and out of custody, would have been great if we could have got that information from support from recovery. Because currently, I don't think any of our providers budget for that, have a line item for that.
Actually, well, there is the gender responsive
Okay.
services that are being offered through, provided by Center Force through, the reentry network. Let me just look at their budget really quickly. I can tell you what that is. We're all having a budget. That's all. And actually, their budget line will increase by will increase by 60K.
Right.
Based on you guys', so. Yeah, so for over a 3-year period, for, Center Force, it is, 188,540. And plus, and then there'll be the one-time increase of 60,000. So we're looking at somewhere close to that 250 maybe.
That's just for translation?
No, women's services.
Oh, women's.
Is that what we're at?
No, we were doing the translation while she was looking for, but
Oh, I'm
That's
sorry.
helpful though.
But that's helpful.
I do though want to acknowledge that maybe as a potential estimate, the district attorney did have included in their budget recommendation or a budget modification for their neighborhood restorative partnership. Let me see if they did a separate line for that, but included in their overall request was for training a staff person or two, and then translation services.
Okay.
Now, we're talking about there's actual interpreters, and there's also translation of materials into multiple languages. So I don't know where that specific service, what exactly that they were planning to do with that. But it could give us something to gauge.
And Center Force is gonna continue to receive funding for that work. Correct? Or like there's an allocation of the RFP out.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the sort of systems design for the reentry network. And they've historically subcontracted that out. It's been, set up.
We double that.
Or something for it?
Well, it wouldn't be for the center, it'd be RFP. But if they're spending 250K a year,
Mhm.
or not a year, over 3
Over
years,
here.
then we double it.
For the women's service and maybe that's,
So make it, so this would be another 250K.
okay, spend over the rest of the
Yeah.
years.
I'm just trying to put numbers down.
Well, no, yeah.
Like,
Well, no, I like where you're going with it, and I want to compare the numbers to what we already have, like,
Yeah.
the best bet, because we have no idea, so I'm gonna go out with what's currently being
Totally.
spent. Because I don't do this programming, so I would like to look at what is currently being spent, and then throw that there, so that we have a number to start off with.
Ozzy, your hands up?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
I thought she was clapping, I'm sorry.
No worries. Hello, everyone. I just
Hello.
wanted to kind of get some clarity with the GMA project. As far as I'm understanding through listening that possibly that services are currently being provided. Is that true?
I'm
There
sorry, you
is-
said services are being provided to the gym project?
Currently being provided in the jails currently.
I'll
as
let
the-
Janice speak to that, because it's going through game plan for success.
Yeah, I can answer that question. We were in the planning stages of starting a launch inside the jails. And have been having multiple conversations around that. And we want to start it as soon as possible. We were just looking at funding for it. And theirs would be probably 2 days a week, ongoing classes in custody with continued follow-up post-release for a portion of the folks in partnership with Center Force. This isn't duplicating what Center Force does. This is totally different than what Center Force does, but it would be done in partnership with them.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. That added clarity. Thank you for that, Jana.
You wanna jump down to the training stuff while she's.
Yes, yes, and I'm glad to have Jamie here. I'm gonna pick on you again, Jamie. Because before we allocate, if you can, I don't know if you know, I know that there is some trainings that are done already in the county.
Yep.
And so before we allocate it, I definitely want to kind of figure out if there's already some trainings out there being provided. Because I don't know if they are being provided necessarily in what we're referring to, like if, for example, with housing assessment and program improvements. I know there's housing training that is currently going on and that's been established, and they're expanding more training. But I'm not sure if it's tied to what we were talking about in reference to shelter. So I just happy to have her here because they have a whole county website of all those trainings that are provided to everybody. So let's start with the first one, housing assessment and program improvement. And that was in reference to the shelter bed utilization. So we're looking to kind of collaborate and kind of get a better idea of what was important regarding that.
So if you refer back to in your packet, page, that would be page 12 of the packet, under area of interest for housing, underutilization of emergency shelter beds by reentry population.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's identify ways to increase the use of AB 109 funded emergency shelter beds, establish an assessment process to understand barriers to usage or placement, identify approaches to be applied to increase night use rate based on assessment findings.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, so I think this is something that we could pretty easily understand from our existing data. I think a lot of the barriers are common things that we know about. Folks don't necessarily want to come to a shelter. They might not have a shelter opening in the region people might want to be staying in. We have very low inventory to begin with, so there's very few openings per week. So there just might not be anything available. And so that might look like an underutilization of particular beds, but it doesn't mean that there are open beds, if that makes sense. But I don't think that depending on what kind of assessment, what kind of evaluation y'all are looking for, I don't think it would be something that would be a very big lift to kind of just look at the data that we have and that we're tracking and try and pull out some analysis from it. But if there's something kind of bigger, better that you all are imagining, then that might be something that has an associated cost with it.
Yeah, so thank you, Jamie. I think that's helpful. I think from my understanding of this, it is kind of that second step. So after we look at the data, how does H3 make any modifications, or are there modifications that H3 can make
Mhm.
to make this stronger, right? To provide, like, to strengthen this service for this population?
Yeah, and I apologize, Jenny's out of the office and she's the chief of programs over at H3, so I'm probably talking a little out of my lane. But I think that that is something that her team can definitely think about. At the end of the day, a lot of it comes back, I think, to our current inventory. You know,
Yeah.
if we don't have more beds, it might not. We're talking about ways to slice the pie in different ways, but not necessarily growing the pie to serve more people.
And then with regard to that second section as well, the siloed housing process evaluation, can you give a little context to the bandwidth that would be required for something like that?
Yeah, so I think that this is something that does take place already, which is really great. You know, our shelters work on doing warm handoff to various CBOs who are doing programs like rapid rehousing, or permanent supportive housing, or voucher programs, housing navigation, all that. So they do work kind of in concert to develop exit planning and gather eligibility requirements like, you know, birth certificates, IDs, all of that fun stuff. I think where we could use some improvement is when that isn't centralized within kind of H3 programs. So if there are housing programs that probation operates directly or public defenders operating directly, there isn't a kind of a coordination that's happening between those departments. So this could be something that we look at. How do we develop some sort of data sharing across all of the county departments that might be integrated here? And then how do we work on some sort of case conferencing or shared, you know, list of a sort to support folks into housing?
So would that be like the, I like the idea you threw out there, because I'm automatically thinking of your current case conference process that you have in place for other housing. So would it be something tailored like that for the justice involved population?
Yeah, and I kind of think of what we do right now with folks who are serving survivors of domestic violence. They, by like law, cannot have their data into our system, but they have comparable data that they collect. They do the VI-SPAT. And so when a housing opening comes up, we're able to coordinate with those providers and, you know, basically merge the list of folks who are coming up on the queue to make sure we're not excluding that population just because we don't have their data in our system.
For me, it sounds like, if I'm hearing you correctly, Jamie, that these two recommendations could be executed within your current structure, and like additional resources might not necessarily need to be added here in order to achieve these two goals.
I think the first recommendation could be achieved within current resources. I think the second one, depending on scope and kind of time, could benefit from additional resources. I know when we did a data sharing agreement with ORJ, it took quite a bit of time, and we don't necessarily have the capacity to, you know, execute it as fully as we could. Like, we can share data, but we don't necessarily have the time and bandwidth to do more data projects. So that could be something that requires more investment.
Great, thank you.
And what would that investment look like, would you know? I'm sorry, I'm putting you on.
That's hard to say, because it'll depend on what the scope of this looks like, right? And how many county departments are involved. What does it mean to collaborate? Is it going to be simple? Is it going to be big? So I think it'll depend on what the scope of that is.
So if you are looking for a dollar amount, we could, Yeah, she's right, in terms of the different systems. So, I mean, if you want, as a placeholder, we currently, we just went through these assessments, sort of process, right, with, for our restorative justice. Now granted, it wasn't necessarily to the level of what you guys are looking in terms of various systems, but just that in terms of a placeholder funding.
Patrice, I'm having a really hard time hearing you.
Okay, I said in terms of a placeholder for funding for right now, I can at least share that what is allocated to have a consultant in place that assists with the needs assessment and some of the other project follow-ups that come as a result of that to ensure some seamless process of implementation is. This is over a 2-year period. $467,000.
You want to just put it in
Is
there?
that as a
and see?
placeholder? Yeah,
Yeah.
put that there for me, please, Kimmy.
It was 450,000.
Yeah,
Yeah, do we need to, make a note and I will see that the first one can be done with
No,
that?
that's not there, Kimmy. I think,
Oh.
we're talking about.
the second 30, row 30. And you could put NA and B29. And then, yeah, that would be 2 years, C30.
Thank you.
And then if you can go back to the slide deck, please. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so then, thank you for that. Okay, so our next one was the county HR employment improvement employment practices for racial justice population. The evaluation of HR practices in county.
So my gut here is that if we invest resources here, they're gonna do something with it.
Right.
And I think this could be really beneficial to pathways for our populations in this county.
I agree. And I was just gonna say, because if we don't have a dollar figure, and it's pretty much kind of like the same as what Jamie and were saying.
Yeah.
about it depends on the system and stuff, is to kind of go that placeholder for that. Because we don't really have a number, we don't really have in here to ask what that will look like.
Yeah.
To be able to do this. So I'm okay with just kind of putting that
Same amount.
placeholder, it's the same amount, because we don't
Okay.
know what's going to be different systems and like data, and what would that cost to be able to do that?
Great.
Well, I don't know so much with that one because it's not necessarily multiple systems in this regard. Because county hiring all really flows through HR. So I think for them, it would be just a matter of, because if I heard it correctly during the presentation, they currently do not have a tracking mechanism to, you know,
Correct.
they don't do that.
Correct.
So if anything, I would foresee that any resources that are going to be allocated here would be to support even building up their internal infrastructure to track some of that information over a potentially over a period of time. And then maybe somewhere down the road, an evaluation of how have things shifted once they were able to even see their.
So would it be starting off with A, to create a process for that and then later focus on these? Because A is to create the checklist, they don't currently have it, or like you said, provide the support to help them be able to track the data.
No, I think it's more B.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, yes. But again, not knowing what that will cost them at the time now. I'll leave that to you.
$150,000.
Go ahead, 150, there we go. There you go.
I mean, again, I think we just need to start plugging in so we can see.
Yeah. Going once, going twice.
Kimmy, can you click on B36 so I can see the formula, please? That's B35. Okay, so can you click on B35 so I can see the formula? Great. Can you hit up in the formula bar? Can you type plus B34? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, cool.
Oh, wait a minute, but I thought, B34.
Is the 600, so if that formula wasn't including the total dollar amount from the department training and project support, so I just added it in. You see this formula? So this is B7, 11,
Yeah.
14, that's all of these totals, but it wasn't including this one,
Okay.
so I just added it.
Okay.
I just saw it wasn't deducing, like,
Sure.
going smaller when we were adding those dollars. Okay,
I also do have the translation, you guys are, from what I saw from.
do you want to just keep going these last two?
Yeah.
Okay, so can we go back to the slide deck, please, Kimmy? And we'll go down to cultural sensitivity, please. Great, thank you. So I think for these next two, I think we mimic the allocation that we have for HR. Unless we have a dollar amount to go on.
I guess my question for example, like the cultural sensitivity training, do you have any idea what trainings mean? So I know there's some out there already that they're all provided through, for example, like HU, how they use what is Reliance, so the majority of them have these trainings built into their program. I don't know.
Yeah, like I know the hubs have a training line. We also have a training line to do cross-system trainings. Some of the other departments or divisions are actively, I think I just included in our last e-newsletter blast.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, Health Right has one coming up, and then AODS is doing one specifically on working with people of color who have opioid disorders. So it's happening, I think, with you all calling it out specifically and you calling it out specifically and to specifically train on how to serve justice populations, I think is still notable,
Okay.
and worth having some allocation there, but even if minimal, because others are already kind of building it into their budgets, or they're actively seeking those kind of training opportunities, creating those training opportunities.
Would you say that's similar for the behavioral health line as well?
Yes, I would say the same.
So I will go with that same thing I didn't just say. I just wanted to make sure before we allocate the money. So
I mean, do you want to do less? What I'm hearing from her is there's already investment.
What did you say again?
You had 150. Can you go back to the budget, Kimmy? Thank you.
And that's it is a lot, so you gotta be, we have to think if with at that amount, that much training is going, especially here.
So maybe it's like a third of that.
Yeah.
Like 50.
I'm trying to think of them, yeah.
Cool. Can we do?
50 for both of those? I was reading your brain.
You got it.
No.
Just 50.
It's 50.
Perfect. And then can you go back up to B16, B18, sorry. The translation. Perfect. Patrice?
So from the DA's, request,
Oh, then you have Amanda.
oh. Go ahead,
Sorry,
Jen.
before moving on from training, it sounds like one of the things we're missing is kind of ensuring that we know everybody got trained. And I don't know, so it's not so much the cost of the training, because I think y'all are right that a lot of trainings are happening in various places that are tailored to like the kind of work folks are doing. But I don't know if there's a way that we know that folks are trained. So that might be a component to think about. And then I think about, particularly with our CBOs, the rate of turnover, and how do we ensure ongoing training is available instead of just like a one-time training opportunity? And then how do we track that?
Can we add that?
So you can increase it a little bit, either,
Increase it and add that little note in our.
so that's not just, yeah.
Where we're saying to ensuring ongoing training for staff turnover and, some kind of process of confirming that turnover.
So what's the ramification if they don't?
What's the ramification if the folks don't complete the training?
Yeah. Like, what are we tracking the data for?
From my perspective, we track our data to make sure we're, HUD compliant. I think from this perspective, it's to make sure that providers are aware of the resources available to them, because a lot of times people don't take the training, not because they don't want to, but because they don't know that it's there or that it happened on a day that wasn't available. So I think it could help with planning and then ensuring that we're able to say, hey, our providers are trained to work with this population, as we kind of refer folks there.
Now, in our contracts with the AB-109 providers, we do have a requirement that any trainings that are called on by the county, that they're required to participate. So, but if this is broader beyond just then the AB-109 program providers, and it's also incorporating department agency staff and also maybe other organizations that are out there touching some population and we're trying to bring them into the fold too. I think that's an important point.
I'm just thinking, so I agree that it's important to understand who's in the room and like know that they're consuming this information. I think my hesitation is that next step. So like, if we can't do anything with this information, how does it benefit us?
So I think it's important, maybe we ask that even though the data's not being used right now, we ask that now we take consideration, like the folks, like you said, are touching this population. When they go for RFPs, or when we looked at as a program, with this, I think it's important to understand, are they staff trained? I think maybe if they're not looking at it now, that if we do collect the data, somewhere we're asking that this now be taken, go forward into consideration. So I think it's important, like I said, the turnover or just knowing that the staff that that CBOs or other providers are educated on how to handle and deal with this population. One of the things that was uplifted, for example, was behavioral health. One of their key concerns is they will want staff that either have lived experience or know how to deal with individuals going into the jail because they've learned that they're better coach in their. So how do we ensure that even county programs, that their staff actually know how to do? And I think it's time that we start looking at that if we're not. But I like the view. I like these conversations.
What is your recommendation then?
For the amount?
No, more like the process, like what does that look like?
I mean, it's something
Would that be
that,
like ORJ managing that?
well, I think that's something that we have to look at,
Put it
like.
on the plate.
If we throw some things. I don't know.
But you know, and maybe shoot myself in the foot by recommending this suggestion. But you know, maybe there's a way in which we could create a, almost like a, among departments, a request for these specific trainings that they can, you know, sign up
Something,
for
right.
or something like that. And then we just kind of, so that there's a way of, if you're gonna put additional dollars out there for training, there's a way in which there's some oversight being done as to how it's actually, who's requesting the training, who actually put it on, and then who were all that were in attendance.
Right.
And then if we're able to see that happening multiple times across multiple systems, then we kind of see holistically, right, how who all are receiving the information.
So how is that being done right now for those, trainings that's been required by, like that, just so out there, for example, like the one that Brian's doing, like how do y'all track the current attendance for the training that they are?
Now, they are required to hold, trainings. Now, whether or not, though, so it's not, because they're the ones holding it and putting it on, there's no requirement.
Okay.
It's making it available.
Okay,
But we would then get access to who was signed on, who's attended. ORJ staff will probably likely be in attendance, so we'll be able to see that.
how do you
And then
track?
for anything that we are hosting, we're able to then identify who all has attended.
I'm looking for a recommendation. Give me, what do you want to see?
I mean, I like, what was put out there to be able to confirm that, trainings, are being completed through CBOs in some kind of way and ensuring ongoing training, because there is a high turnover.
So if we include that in the narrative, do we want to increase the budget? I don't understand, like, is this gonna be an IT held? Yeah, I just.
I mean, there's missing pieces,
Yeah.
it's missing pieces, so for this whole section, in a sense, there's kind of missing pieces. So we're taking, because we don't really have all the information of really who's gonna be able to do it, how long it's gonna take, we don't have that. Same thing with the first, we really don't have,
So then I think my recommendation would be not to invest in it.
okay,
Because we have 12 other things that are making a direct impact on our population. And instead of uneducatedly throwing dollars at something that we don't know how it's gonna impact, I think we should invest in it.
so you want to remove the 50?
No, I think we can keep
Yes,
training, but
oh,
like the
okay.
component of
That's fine,
starting to track and manage things, I think.
it's something we can discuss a little bit later.
Hi, I know you guys are busy, but is there any way that you can help me get back to this office? I think I left my phone.
Yeah.
So what we can do is, because you know, after this, we still have our work plan. We get done with this, I can see, but we still have a 24 work plan. We can add some, things that, we took away from this. to
Yeah,
kind
I
of
think
make it
that's,
more-
and then we can start layering that on.
Okay, I'm
That's
okay
great.
with that.
Okay, and then Patrice is gonna give us
The
the
translation, yep.
One thing I think would be helpful real quick, can you scroll all the way up to the top, Kimmy? So if we start looking at each of these for what we think is 1 year or 3 year, can you zoom in a couple clicks?
Sorry, I didn't bring my
Please.
glasses, Kimmy.
Perfect, thank you. So that core street outreach 30K is for 1 year.
And I didn't write down any of what was the one.
That's what I'm doing right now. So then the homeless prevention and diversion, rapid rehousing and interim bridge housing, I think that those should be RFPs out over
Correct.
3 years.
Okay.
So if we can do 3 years, perfect, that's great.
I will
That's good.
say,
All 3 of those.
What'd you say, Jamie?
the rapid rehousing and interim budgets are about 1 year.
Oh, so the budget is 1 year, okay.
Rapid rehousing, that would serve probably about 40, 45 households in a year, and interim would be about 1 year.
Okay, thank you. So then going down
then the staff and
Those are
those was one.
both 1 year, but the conversation with Patrice was that Cal-Aim would come in theoretically and sustain this funding.
Not sure about which one.
The CSW and the
Oh, okay.
mobile.
That's my
Theoret-
assumption, that Cal-Aim, can potentially be utilized.
So then can you put 1 year next to both of those three? Please. The employment one, I think should be a multi-year. Like, there's no way that's getting done in 1 year. So can we do RFP for 3 years, please? Great. The guaranteed income, I also think should be multi-year.
It is, but did she give us the funding, was it for a year?
The original 1 million was actually for, I believe it was 18 months.
Yeah. So then double it could be for 36 months.
Okay.
So RFP for 3 years. Yeah, so you wanna update us on the translation?
Oh, yeah, it's here for 25,000, to provide interpreter services for non-English speaking participants. So my guess is that during the panel proceedings. So that's, for, translation on site. So depending on what you all are wanting here for translation and interpretation services for in custody, out of custody, is this translation of materials, is this I'm guessing it's translation of materials for the most part, but, that was one that I think we needed more specification from that.
So it was interpretation, so be able to provide, translation for in and out if it's, I don't want to say the case management piece, the, translation of paperwork, into another language, that support the whole support for individuals. So that's face-to-face, that's documentation, that's, what you say, language,
And is that like the CBO has access to that, or the CBO is?
explain what you must see about access.
So like, does that mean all of our CBOs could utilize this resource that's being held maybe at the county or somewhere else? Or is it that a CBO is taking this task on of providing translation?
So the idea was to set one for a CBO to, well, it was up in the air. To be honest, it wasn't really determined. This came from more information I grabbed from our full cab and from programs and services around the women in the translation. We had a full cab board, so we just added it here. I don't think we dug deep into if it was going to be tied to an individual CBO or have the service. So it came from the support for recovery presentation. And they're not currently one of our CBOs. So it can be either or, it can be a new provider, but again, it's only one time, right? Expanding what they currently have, or it can be the CBOs utilizing the funding. But we as a committee or a board did not really dive that, we did not go to that step to the funding. Since it's only one time, I would probably say more of an expansion, for providers or something like that, because it's our current provider that does it, like I think you guys have to expand their current transition service, provide support and that's support population. And I know some of the CBOs provide some support, like the RC provides the support. Sometimes if they have, they're not required to, but if they have a bandwidth, sometimes they can send someone to help translate when needed, as an example. But just thinking of the CBOs, I mean, that would be a great addition to their services if they have the capacity.
So I do want to highlight that sometimes it can be very difficult to hire like staff. especially in sort of like the social service, health services sort of area. Not say it's not worth doing, but just know that if that's what you're looking for, more or less like, having staff on hand that is able to translate for this case management workshops, where the case may be, either hiring staff for that can take some time, and so you
Right.
won't be seeing the utilization of those resources immediately. But you will, anyway, so that's something to
What if we are figured out? Like I said, what if there are services that already exist to do that?
How is it being utilized? Like if I'm a CBO,
Right now?
no, in your mind.
Oh, if I was to see, well, right now, one of the disciplines, in and out of custody is to provide, there's a population that has financial services.
Right.
And
But so like, say I'm a CBO and I'm working with that person, how do I get them translation space?
so, so if we were to, in my mind, say, for example, we're the RPI or someone else provides this service and they come in, right? If I know that I have someone that's going to the program that needs that, then I would tap into that provider to, assist them.
So they would come and sit with you
Correct.
during case management.
We're doing case management.
That sounds like so expensive.
And it could be, I mean, we just do it there, that's something we can wait later for as well, but it was one of the things that we talked about, Jamie, what?
Yeah, oh, sorry, I think someone else was trying to speak too.
Oh, no, I was just also gonna say we had, I think Cynthia might be ready, for the women's service numbers as well, if you guys wanted to still hear that.
Great, we'll circle back with her. Thank you, Kimmy.
So for
Jamie,
translation
you wanna-
services, I'm curious if your providers, or if like the thought is to have that in-person interpretation available, because I know a lot of providers utilize something like a language line, that's like a remote option when they're working with folks who speaks a different language than them. And you can also, utilize that for translation services. And then I know the county has in-house translation services that are very expensive, but are very responsive as well and do really high quality work. So I wonder if the number could kind of be generated from those existing type of services. I think it would be challenging to have one CBO kind of awarded a contract to be kind of on-demand translation needs.
That's good feedback, thank you.
Jamie, I have another question. In your experience with those language translation services that you call into, are they culturally responsive?
I think they do like and it differs by language, but I think they probably do a good enough job. It's probably not like the best thing in the whole wide world, but I think they get the job done overall.
Thank you.
I know we keep in mind also for the in custody, what the sheriffs shared, for as well as game plan for success, and some of the things are being translated. I think Jill shared before too,
Yeah.
tablets, and so from a paperwork standpoint, we know that's already
Yeah.
in the works, and there are some things that are being done. I think we need more information.
We're good.
I think we need more, what can we do to, like, because we know it's a need. Jamie, do you have the numbers for what you were talking about, what it looks?
Oh,
like?
sorry, I didn't realize I was. I don't, but I think it could be something we can find out relatively easy. I know that it's from my past experience, it's not a huge dollar amount. So I think if you baked in there like 250, it'd probably be in a pretty good starting spot. But I could definitely help looking for more specific kind of quotes.
Yeah, so I think I'm leaning more towards the same concepts that I shared previously about the training track.
Right.
Of like, we know that there's other things on this table that are gonna positively impact our population. And this might be a gap that we need to spend more on.
Okay.
So then, Kimmy, can you delete row 18? And Jamie, no need to dive into that any deeper. Thank you.
We took the 18.
Sounds good.
So what does that mean?
Great. So then this is a perfect segue into the individual who can share about women's services.
Yeah, thanks. So our full annual budget for in custody and continuing care services is 373,557.
And that's for Contra Costa, Cynthia?
Correct.
And Center Force is being contracted for 250 for 3 years.
And that 373 is how many years?
1 year. And Cynthia, that would theoretically serve how many individuals?
Depends on how many folks start in custody and if you want to add folks who have not done it outside. So it's somewhere between 75 and 100 plus. And a part of that is coordination with the existing gender specific probation officers. I think there's 5 currently, but 1 vacancy.
Center Force is serving.
It's not that large, it's probably close to about.
And are they maxed out? Like,
No, no, because some of that is based on, the referrals that they've received from GPS as well as, any referrals that come through Health Rate 360s. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Shannon.
We can't hear you guys talking in the room if you're talking.
All right, I'm sorry, go ahead, Jenna.
Oh, and I was just gonna say that the programs differ. The Gemma project that Cynthia's proposing is actual in custody, 2 days a week of programming ongoing that women can participate in. And then, of course, the post-release services she was referring to. At the moment, there's no ongoing in custody specific programming. And hers is geared towards trauma and geared towards the missing pieces. So it's more like they do 2 different things between Center Force and Gemma Project.
thank you.
Thank you for that. I was gonna get this in the contact. So it's keeping that into account on the services that Cynthia can provide.
We can't hear you guys talking in the room.
I was gonna, thank you, Jen. I was gonna actually point that out, the difference in the amount with the services that the Gemma project is providing versus Center Force. So,
Well, let's see where we're at. So let's finish column C if we can. So Kimmy, can you go back up 1? We originally said this is for 3 years, so if we can just put that there as a placeholder. Great. 22 through 25 are all 1 year. Perfect. And then 30 through 32 are all 1 year.
right.
Okay, and then if you go all the way down. So we have a balance of 2.5 million.
So I would definitely want to increase women's service because there's a need
Okay.
for it. So I definitely want to do that. I don't know.
So you want to do like 250 over 3 years? For a total of 750?
Yes.
Can we do that, Kimmy? So it wouldn't fund Cynthia's entire
Right.
request, but it wouldn't necessarily go to her, it's gonna be our,
Yeah, we have,
right.
where are we now?
So we're at like 2 million balance.
Again, I know, we go back up to housing. The housing is
Yeah.
what I need is that, so
I know.
if we have money, we should put some more money somewhere.
Jamie,
Oh, Jamie.
if you were to make a recommendation on investing more in rapid rehousing or interim,
Mhm.
Where would your gut be?
I would actually think, I would say if we're looking at a 3-year for core kind of after hour stuff, I would right size the core outreach to be a 3-year as well.
Oh, right, we were
forgot
gonna do
about
that.
that.
Thank you
Okay.
for that. Can you make that 900K, Kimmy? Thank you for calling that. I totally
What
forgot.
about in the-
No worries. And then with, I think that would leave us about $1 million, 2 million, 1.4.
Go
Uh,
down real quick
Then I think,
for, my eyes is going.
We
Oh,
did
pre-post.
the core. We
Oh.
did 450 over 3 years.
Okay,
Okay, we're good.
go back up.
so I think if we did rapid rehousing at about 1.5, that could give us maybe 30 households over 2 years or so.
Okay,
Okay,
And then bridge, if we added the $1 million there, it would mean probably slightly smaller set of units over 2 years, or
Okay.
a larger set of units over 1 year, potentially.
great. So I'm good with both those recommendations.
so update the rapid rehousing to 1.5 for 2 years, and then the intern was, 4 million
For 2
for
years.
2 years. So both are changed from 1 year to 2 years.
Thank you. I'm so glad you're here.
Right?
Can you scroll all the way to the bottom?
I'm like trying to follow. Okay, so
15K negative.
All right.
Sweet.
You guys know how to spend some money.
And then if you want to even that out, I think the 450 for the housing services coordination might be high. So I think that's where I would take it out of.
The core team.
No, scroll down, sorry.
19.
Line 29.
My eyes are down. Okay.
So that'll be,
I guess take
434.
yeah,
Take 20 out.
or 33. Oh, we're good, we're good. That's right. Cool.
All right.
You hit save.
Thank
Thank you. Too many missed projects. All had it.
Remember all that for me, Justin? All right, so scroll back to some, I think we're,
Ozzy, are you still with us?
she was having internet, problem. I'm not sure, she's still here?
I don't see her unless she's the person who's connected via phone.
I'm on the phone.
There we go.
So, Ozzy, I just would love to hear any additional feedback you might have for us with regard to this process and kind of where we ended up.
Well, I'm very happy, and I know that everything is in capable hands. I've had some internet issues, so there were some things that I missed. I did have a question which was answered. I appreciate that, and I'm assured that we're ready to move forward with the recommendations at this point, from my vantage point.
Awesome. We just
Thank
wanted
you,
your
Madam
blessing.
Chair.
Cool.
All right. So if you guys don't mind, we can at least look at each of the totals for each section and see if this feels balanced and right for you guys. So for housing, I know you all mentioned that was really a key area. So of the 15 million, you got 7.4. So that's over the half.
Yeah.
And then for behavioral health, 932, thousand with the understanding that hopefully through AIM and the polls and other things that are happening, some gaps will be filled there. Pre-employment piece, 1.5 million. For pre and post release engagement, 3.65.
It's like 25%.
And then all of the budget modification requests, so it's that we're hearing that you all are moving forward with those all at one time, 1 year amounts. And then you have some additional resources here for departmental CBO training where you have essentially 680,000 to put aside for those sort of capacity building, system enhancement opportunities.
So Jill, we see your hand. I have one question. Therese, can you go back up to 21, 22, that heading? So we have it listed as budget modifications, but I think we should change that language, right? Because if it's a modification, doesn't that mean that it's gonna get carried forward into the next fiscal
No.
year?
If it's baseline,
Oh, okay, great.
it's gonna
Cool.
carry on. This is what they would call the program modification.
Okay,
This is where they're asking for something that would not have ordinarily been a part of their core programming.
awesome.
Now, how it gets back after, right, is yet to be determined because we don't know where the budget will stand for the following year.
Got it.
Which is why CAO was asking if we would consider, if you guys would consider these requests out of the reserve.
Awesome, thank you. Jill?
So yeah, so that was one of my questions, but I think it really does need to make clear in the narrative, Patrice, that because these were put in as budget modifications, and normally with the CCP budgets, those budget modifications roll over and become baseline for the following year. So I think somewhere in the narrative or the staff report, it needs to be clear that these are one-time only monies, not to be folded into baseline in future years. I just think it really needs to be stated clearly because the way that all those budget modification requests end up being baseline budgets the following year. As the CAB budget or the CCP budgeting goes. My other, and I got an answer as to next steps. So at any point in time that you want me to give you that overview, I know we're a little early in the budget and I now have a grandson walking in behind me making noise, so I'm gonna go on mute.
You to turn around and say, stop it.
I'm in a meeting. So at any point in time, you want an update on the next steps, because I know we're not part of the agenda yet. I'm happy to give you that update.
Thank you, Jill. How do you feel?
I would definitely like to take the next step now, and then we can.
But how do we feel?
Oh,
I think
I'm
we put a
perfect.
stamp on it.
I put a stamp on it. I'm happy with everything that we achieved and being able to comb through this and
Yeah.
not really ever doing this before. I am put a stamp on it.
We do it.
You have to vote.
Is this a voting? I don't think we technically have it as a voting item. I think,
Should we just formalize it?
Yeah, we don't have it as a voting
we
item.
don't have it as a voting item. I think it's okay to, for, CAB gave you the authority to make adjustments, but we'll take that as is and start to package that for your recommendations for us.
Awesome. Right.
No.
Okay, go ahead, Jill. The board is yours.
Okay, so Patrice already told you the next CCP meeting is scheduled for May 13th. The PPC meeting, Public Protection Committee meeting, is now no longer on April 25th. It is now on May 6th. And then it gets a little fuzzy from there as to the process. So they'll be determining after the May 6th and then the May 13th CC meeting, they'll be providing further direction on next steps. It is being planned to go into the 24-25 Board of Supervisors budget approval process, which I believe the budget's going to be, the final budget will be approved May 21st by the Board of Supervisors. I'm going to double check that date real quick. Yeah, May 21st is a budget adoption. So my guess is it will be rolled into that somewhere along the lines. That's the update.
Thank you.
Okay.
So, in terms of next steps for packaging all of this together, we can certainly clean this up
Yep.
and as well as the outline. Did you guys want to take an initial stab at the narrative in case you want to happen to ensure that it had a certain framing to this, and then send that over to us and we'll clean it up, adding additional,
Yeah, when do you need that by?
let's see.
Because we
This
drafted
was-
something, I'm just gonna make it mimic this.
Yeah, he already started it.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
so it's pretty well
Good job.
fleshed out.
Yeah,
Glad
I'm
you worked
glad
on
you
that.
thought about doing that. He already wrote and started the narrative and it's just added this
Nice.
piece at the bottom.
Okay.
Amazing.
Teamwork makes it
Yes.
work.
Let me look at the calendar. Work backwards, so, I would say if you can aim to give us an initial draft by next Friday.
Not at all. Do you need to read it, or are you good if I send it to them and then they send it to us?
Okay.
I have trust in you. I've already read the draft, so I know it's just that you're,
It's just gonna
it's just
change,
updating and
yeah.
expanding what we already have on there. You take my gibberish, you always make it sound nice, so go ahead.
And then we'll get a final draft copy to, all of you, to see what will go to the, CC packet. Did you guys want to do a formal, like, PowerPoint presentation or anything like that? You definitely have flexibility in terms of how you want to present it.
I have to grade it.
I mean, just, to start on it and then we can.
So what do you, ugh. What would make you feel most comfortable when you're presenting this information? Well, like, what do you want in front of you? Because I could totally tap, like, the information is there, so a slide deck is easy to build.
I could, a PowerPoint will make it easy.
So I
Well,
will,
I will be taking your typed out paperwork and the PowerPoint. But it'd be easier for me to flow in front of me.
I think if you have you work on your narrative pieces,
Right.
all that first, because you're gonna probably pull a lot of that.
And put that into
Put
the
that
slide.
into-
I got you.
Oh, you are, ready. Thank you.
Well,
And I,
okay,
no, no, but it's okay, I'm gonna go and present on behalf of our. Sorry. Make sure I give you kudos.
Let's see.
Okay.
I'll send both of those to you next week.
Okay, sounds good. Perfect. We just talked about that, discussing. And then, in terms of scheduling future, we really don't have.
We don't have it.
Or I think we're kind of there, I think, yeah, we'll need to update this timeline for you to take into account the changes in the CCP, and schedule there. The board of supervisors are doing a budget hearing, on, Monday, the 22nd, and Tuesday, the 23rd, all day. So if you have not, we had here originally that we thought maybe you guys were gonna be a part of that, but that's not happening, so don't even worry about that piece. But just generally speaking, we want to hear from all the departments, what, they'll be presenting to, the board of supervisors, their budgets for the upcoming year. So those are all day, hearings, but certainly we're listening in for. And then you guys' next meeting,
Can I make a recommendation?
yes,
That we cancel that meeting since we're gonna be attending CCP?
that's very, I'll leave it to you guys.
Okay, wait a minute, you lost me with the date.
Agrees for Friday, you know? So it's scheduled for the 17th, but we're meeting with CCP on the 13th. So the recommendation is to cancel that month's meeting. meeting.
I agree.
Great.
We get a little bit.
And the next,
So then then that would mean that your next, policy and budget meeting will be on
the 21st.
June 21st.
Who said CCP was on the, what, the 13th, right?
May 13th.
Make sure.
And the July 19th, I'll have to reschedule, or I will not be in attendance.
Okay,
We will figure that out later.
okay. All right, and then that's it.
So next steps, Kimmy, is that Justin's gonna draft a narrative and PowerPoint and send to Patrice. Patrice is updating the narrative in the, I don't know what we're calling that document. What is this document? The recommendations outline. There's some narrative changes that you have. And then that's it.
When I make changes to the outline, I'll do it in track changes to be sure that I capture, and you guys let me know if I miss.
Can we just make a note, well, is Gary, are we still doing the, agenda planning on Monday? Gary?
I think so.
Okay.
Yes.
Because one of the next steps I just want to remember for our meeting in June is our work plan. That's what we're going to do. Start working on that.
I think you guys have done quite a bit of work planning.
Right, I mean, half of it, you know. But now,
No, but that's a good point to kind of think through, because of this sort of series of planning sessions, it's what this body would have typically have done, right, is preparing for policy recommendations for later in the year. You kind of already
Right.
done that for the last kind of 2 years. if you
Right,
will.
yes.
So I think it's probably a good idea to think through how do you want to structure whatever remaining priorities you feel like this body should tackle for the remainder.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. We will
Ask
now,
for public comment.
I'm so sorry, open for any public comment.
The only public comment I would make is just so that you all know the sheriff's oversight budget, or sheriff's oversight report, quarterly report is scheduled for Tuesday after the budget hearings, Tuesday afternoon, the 23rd of April.
How does that?
No, if it's something you're interested in.
Oh, okay.
Is that a different link or that's what we done at the board of suits too?
That's what you're saying.
Okay.
Because typically it's a special meeting,
Right.
where the sheriff a number of data points related to their operations as a department.
It actually is just part of the Board of Supervisors meeting quarterly now.
Okay.
It's the truth forum that's sort of a special meeting. And I'm sorry, my husband's now using the saw.
No, I was gonna ask if you happen to know, out of Monday and Tuesday, what part they're gonna cover the Measure X at the board of suits, because there are gonna be.
Yes, Tuesday afternoon.
Perfect. That's all I want.
They will have a conversation. And the agenda has been published if you haven't seen it yet, so it shows the order of events.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
It's a hot budget season, I tell you.
Yes,
that.
it is. I'm over here like, oh, no.
Looks like Ozzy.
Ozzy, go ahead. We can't hear you.
Ozzy, you're muted.
Okay, thank you. I'm not used to using the phone to speak. I just wanted to add that Measure X tab is actually the last line item on the Tuesday agenda for the Board of Supervisors.
Yeah, just to clarify, because I just pulled it up, Ozzy, it's listed under D1, which is the end of the budget presentations, but prior to the sheriff's oversight report.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that.
Right, thank you. Okay. Want to make a note. Perfect. All right, any other questions or comments? Is there any more? I don't think so.
There are not.
Awesome, thank you so much. So I just want to thank everyone for participating today. So we're going to adjourn to our next policy and budget meeting, which will be on June 21st. Thank you, everybody. Have a good weekend.